Uhuru Kenyatta.
Soon after assuming office in 2013, retired President Uhuru Kenyatta began the push for a digital payment system for government services. The president formed a task force to find a digital payment solution, appointing the then Director of Economic Affairs from Treasury, Justus Nyamunga, to lead the team. Thereafter, eCitizen was picked, a platform where key government services were placed into one. So what is this eCitizen? Who owns it? How does it operate? And what will happen to your data should the system fail? My name is Grace Nganga, and I speak to James Ayugi, who is the owner of eCitizen, to answer key questions. In 2014, retired President Uhuru Kenyatta formed a task force to find a digital payment solution. And one, James Ayugi, was able to, his concept was taken up and shortlisted as a contractor by the World Bank. James, thank you so much for joining us here on KTN News. Perhaps you can take us through that journey of the eCitizen. What is it? When was it formulated to date?
Basically, 2014 was when now the government wanted to pilot something that already started during President Mwai Kibaki's regime. So initially it was called e-registry. And at that time, there were so many forms that were still in paper. M-Pesa and payment channels had not improved to allow online payments. So it was difficult to go fully transactional. But since we had started in 2009, we won a tender from IFC World Bank to implement the e-registry. It gave us an insight of actually the problems that the government was facing at that time. So during the launch, I remember then the finance minister, Uhuru Kenyatta, said, we are looking at a time when Kenyans will be able to apply and pay for government services online. And we just thought, maybe this is an opportunity for us to just focus on this. Those days we were very young guys in the early 20s, and we just said, this is what we want to do. So we were sure of what we wanted to do at that time. 2011, we launched the first transactional registry for the city of Nairobi. And this was the construction permitting automation. So what that enabled is all construction permits applications will be submitted online, paid for online. And between 2011 to 2014, we did similar implementations around the world. And it gave us experience dealing with governments. So later on in 2013, we were like, we just don't want to be construction permit experts. Since it is one of the most complex systems for government, it means we can just be able to automate the rest. So we were invited for a demo by some guys at Treasury. This is after the formation of the task force. And we went there and we presented a working system. And apparently, that is what the government wanted. When the president said digital payments, there are some guys in government who thought of ATMs, card printing. They're only focusing on the payment side. So during our presentation, I just said, even though you guys want payments, the citizen wants the service. So payments cannot be successful if we do not automate the service. The proposal that we are giving you is a 360, where we will be able to automate the service and also payments. So at that time, I did a real demo on how to onboard a service and how you pay digitally. And the Secretariat was impressed. So they invited me to demonstrate to the task force, who also are impressed. And I remember in those meetings, there were so many big organizations who were presenting from banks, international organizations. But we had something that really connected to the team. And from that moment is when now the government showed interest. And the question was, how do we engage you? Luckily, by 2014, we had already worked for the World Bank for the last 6 years. And we were already now in a shortlisted vendor. So we informed the government that we are already working with the bank, and what we are trying to automate falls within what the bank will finance. So the government wrote to the bank and requested for support, and then we were onboarded through the World Bank procurement channels. Now that's when we started the pilot. So by 2014, 1st of July, we went live now with an upgraded e-registry, calling it eCitizen, for a pilot. Yes.
So years down the line, and eCitizen is still a strong software in the country. Perhaps you can take us through, once I make my payment as a Kenyan to any of the government services, that procedure. Where does my money go to? Does it pass through you guys first? Does it go to a certain channel before it gets to the consolidated bank of the government? Just that channel. How is it?
Over the years, things have changed. When we started with PesaPal, and they had their own single pay bill that all their merchants are using. So it was very difficult to run all government operations under their shared pay bill. So later on, we informed the Treasury that we will need a dedicated pay bill for the pilot. And that's when the 206 pay bill was registered through a PRSP company called Gold Rock Capital. So now, after that, we started going through the process of doing something called payment aggregation. Now, what people need to understand, when you're making payments through 50 different channels for a single service, the government needs to see this revenue in real time, and being able to give the government report per service and per revenue line. It was very crucial for the proof of concept. So our model was the most unique because we could be able to provide the government department visibility of breakdown of all their revenue per service, which in the past it was not possible. The way it used to happen, they'll go and count receipts, go through bank statements for them to actually know the breakdown of revenue. But now, after we came in, we did that aggregation and gave the departments visibility of the money. And that was now our secret weapon. We empowered government departments to just do their work. And we actually preferred just being in the back end, trying to help. So when I talk about the journey, you pay via M-Pesa. This money goes into a central account that is managed by the Treasury. And then from that central account, this money is pushed to the department that is supposed to receive this payment. So there is a full ecosystem around government that handles that settlements and all those kind of...
So the money does not at all get to...
You see, there is checks and balances, because there are reporting collection agents for government. Example, NTSA. They collect. At the end of the day, there is some money they can use as ANA, and there is some money that is submitted to Exchequer. They have their accounting team auditing their own transactions based on the services they've offered to the citizens. So even the guys at the digital payment unit, whose work is purely to settle, cannot move these monies to any other account because each and every service is tied to a bank account. So it can only be settled to that bank account. So at the end of the day, they get the money in lump sum. But they have a dashboard that gives them a breakdown of all the single transactions that are coming in. So it is not accurate to say that there is some private people or one single government agency, including Treasury, that is taking money and spending. No, it has to first move to the MDAs, and then MDAs are the ones who now remit to Treasury after they've done their own accounting.
Yes. Now, you've been there since 2013. When we try and compare the policies of President William Ruto and retired President Uhuru Kenyatta, President William Ruto is adamant that all government services must be paid through the eCitizen platform, as opposed to retired President Uhuru Kenyatta. His argument, of course, is to fight corruption. Now, you've been there through both. Do you think really integrating all these payments into one service is going to fight off corruption in the country?
So we've been privileged to actually serve 3 regimes. One for President Mwai Kibaki, and then Uhuru Kenyatta, and then the current president, William Ruto. We interacted with the current president because he was also the chair of the cabinet subcommittee on digitization. And he was very, very sure, even when we started, that this is possible. He was the first one to renew his driver's license on eCitizen using his card, because he was like, I can't just trust until I see. So he brought in a card, and then he tested, and then he was able to print an output. Now, somehow by chance, this has been the longest pilot ever. For the 8 years we were piloting with, we started with 10 services, but it scaled to 397 services, where now we maintain for the 8 years. And during the 8 years, so much changed from the initial technology that we had, because now we had never experienced the kind of traffic that we started experiencing, especially from guys like NTSA and immigration, who are serving the masses. So later on, we realized that the kind of technology that we are using will not be able to serve the citizens of Kenya due to hanging and downtimes and all those kind of things. So we rewrote the whole code to improve. Now, the previous regime had good intentions, but they couldn't try and settle some of these issues that were rising left, right, and center. But also mostly it was due to legal issues left, right, and center, because people don't like touching things that are in court. So somehow that one also extended delays in regularizing and taking this proof of concept to the next level. But based on what we've seen work, every time we automate a service, there's a 10-time growth on revenue, double digits, all services. And this only proves to you that when you digitize government services, corruption dies a natural death. So sometimes you don't even need to shout corruption.
But how so? When you say that we kill corruption through eCitizen platform, how so?
You see, when there's movement of cash and human interaction, there is room for corruption, because you'll want to pay someone to fast track something for you. And you've seen this across different government departments in the past. And when these delays are just due to either manual processes and payments, it becomes very easy for corruption to thrive. So when you reduce human interaction, and I'm able to renew my driver's license somewhere in Nakuru, the highway, and pay for it via M-Pesa, and I get a service without calling anyone, then that's how you kill corruption. So with the new initiative by the current government, we are confident that the future regimes are going to benefit from the current president's initiative, because this is the hardest decision, but even Kenyans are going to benefit. Of course, it is first of a kind. When you automate 16,000 services in a single layer, it is impossible. When go and ask any of these tech companies, they'll tell you it is impossible. But once you have a leader who is committed, we've come to learn that everything is possible. So I believe the single treasury account first brings transparency, where the National Treasury has visibility of how much each and every MD has collected in real time. You don't have to wait 2 years down the line. So they have visibility. And when you are accounting for it, they already know how much you've collected. And the system serves both of you. So that's how you kill corruption. Also, under declaration. So you collect, let's say example, 100 million, and you declare 500 million, 50 million. Because you have so many other accounts that the government doesn't even know, no one even knows. And they go unnoticed. So with the government shutting down most of these pay bills and accounts and making sure that there is visibility, it gives the National Treasury a global view. And of course, for planning purposes, it's much more transparent.
So this new pay bill number, 22222, as you say, it is just centralizing the payments. Nobody owns it.
It is, so previously there was 206, which ran for the pilot. And the pilot of the eCitizen was between 2014 to last year, when now the government regularized and now decided our policy moving forward is going to be eCitizen. Now, the government is the one who owns and controls all the 22222 pay bills. And when you pay to that 22222, it goes directly to a central account or a holding account managed by the Treasury. And then, since it's just a holding, money can only be settled back to the MDAs. So MDAs are able to offer you a service because they have visibility of the money. When you pay via M-Pesa, they're able to see that. And they're able also to get notification in real time. So no one has access to, even no one is able to withdraw that money. It can only go directly to the designated accounts of government. So we don't have access, and no one within our team has access to that.
So now, if the government is the one which owns this pay bill number,
yes,
who owns eCitizen?
Now, eCitizen is 100% owned by the government of Kenya. Through the agreements that we've signed, of course, we've transferred all the rights to the government. And just like any other software company, you give a license to a government or a country, and then they have their customized version that works within their policy and legal laws that exist. So they currently own 100% of eCitizen. We and others are just service providers who are supporting the ecosystem. And for each and every support, there's also a change request process. So we can only access what we need to access when we need to access, when there is issues.
Still, when we're comparing the two regimes, this current regime has reintroduced convenience fee of 50 shillings in some of the government services. Is it safe to say that maybe this money is used to help run up the system or something like that? Where does this money go to?
So there's been several gazette notices on convenience fee. During the pilot, it was proposed because there was no budget allocation, and we wanted a more sustainable proof of concept, because there are so many costs related to SMSs, related to emails, related to firewalls. There are so many other costs that pile up every single day. So currently, this is money that is collected for the National Treasury. The National Treasury is the one who consumes the convenience fee 100%. Is the one who decides which department we are going to zero rate. Again, a very good example. When you go for ferry services, you'll pay via 222, but there is no cost. It is zero rated. When you go to paying for university school fees, there's no convenience fee there. So the government decided. For us, we are paid outside the convenience fee. The government can choose to publish another gazette notice, like the way they've done recently, to break down the different tariffs, where they said now it's starting from 5 shillings, going up to 50 shillings. So the new gazette notice is currently under implementation, so that those new tariffs are able to be captured across all the different services.
All right. Now, initially, if I can take you back, you had said that this money that is collected is usually channeled to different MDs, right? This convenience fee, this 50 shillings that has been collected, where is it channeled to?
So the 50 shillings is channeled to ICT Authority through the National Treasury. ICT Authority are the ones who are mandated to do mostly digitization work, and they have their own way of managing it. So they're currently the ones who consume it. Yes.
All right.
And this is as per Treasury's directive.
Now, let us talk about this particular software is very fragile, having that it has data of Kenyans out there. When it comes to data protection policy, how safe am I that in case of a system failure, my details are safe?
First, there are information that there is guideline on data protection, and from the different government departments or officers who are offering services, they have access to information that is only needed for them to be able to serve you. From our side, we don't have those kind of access and privileges. We only have access to the source code to be able to update, fix a bug, compile, and push it to the government, who are the ones who now manage the whole ecosystem, including the server. So all the server that is running government services are owned by the government, paid for by the government, and managed by the government. And then we also have backups. So we don't have situations where there's loss of data. So each and every record is backed up in a secondary site and a third site, and we keep on improving.
So what you're trying to say is that for my data to be leaked or to be lost is close to impossible at the eCitizen platform?
Yes, data is encrypted at rest. So when you fill the details, it is encrypted. So even if you gain access to the database, it will just be encoded text. So you can't really be able to use it. Yes.
All right. Now let us go to July 2023, where there were reports that eCitizen had been hacked, right? Was it really hacked?
So of course, there have been so many hacking attempts, but none has managed to go through. So what happened in July, it was something called denial of service attack. Now, a very good example is your line. When someone calls you, it's only allowed to receive one call at a time. When 10 people call you, they'll find like user busy, until when it's open again. Now, online is equally the same. So you have a server allocation that can handle X number of continuous traffic. Now, when you exceed this traffic, you start getting errors. So what happened that time, there was an attack. We were getting more than 80 million requests per second. And that was way beyond the capacity of the eCitizen at that time. So what we did, of course, we identified where the traffic was coming in, and the security agencies were able to block traffic from those areas and firm up the security of the system. So those guys hit probably everyone. They were going for all the ecosystem from the M-Pesa and the banking infrastructure. So it was not only eCitizen that was attacked with that method. It's a common method from guys who don't have access to your system, but they just want to frustrate you. But it's not sustainable long term because it is costly to send artificial traffic to a server over a long period of time. So that was a well-funded attack, and we managed to come out of it stronger because now there are so many other loopholes that were identified, and we managed to seal that.
So maybe apart from that particular attack that was publicized, have you guys had any attacks and you're like, oh my God, they were close to?
There's attacks every day, every single day. There are people who are not happy. There are people who are not happy. There are people who are just trying. So every single day there's attacks, but we have a dedicated team working directly with the government security agencies at ICT Authority and Communication Authority, who's just doing real-time monitoring. So there is, that part is well funded and coordinated by the government. They are aware of everything that is happening.
So perhaps if we are to get a new regime, maybe next year, an example, and this regime decides that, you know what, we don't need eCitizen anymore. So what are the consequences of having such decisions when it comes to data of Kenyans, when it comes to the platform in itself? What are the consequences?
eCitizen is a government policy, and a government is a system. It can be a manual system, it can be an online system. Of course, there will be policies with new regimes, but going by the fact that this system has survived 3 regimes, there's no president that will come in and cut what is generating revenue for them, because there is not a single disadvantage of eCitizen. It is generating revenue for the government, it is working. So I believe it will exist for as long as government still collects money from its citizen. eCitizen will continue to exist, even the other regimes. Luckily, they'll find all the hard work have been done. So probably they'll experience smart government, and probably decide to lower costs of services.
All right, when it comes to a government service like eCitizen, of course, most Kenyans assume that it should be perfect. So this, when you try to pay and then there's a delay, they get frustrated and agitated. They're like, how comes it's not working today? So there are some issues like that when it comes to system upgrades, for example. You can talk to us about it, because recently the system upgrades have been intense in that particular, in the eCitizen platform.
So there are so many third-party applications integrated to eCitizen. Some of them fail, and of course that has an impact to eCitizen infrastructure. As by my knowledge, the government has put in enough resources just to make sure that there is high availability of the eCitizen ecosystem. And there is no downtime. We don't usually experience downtime other than that one incident of denial of service attack. So when there are issues, since of course it's a critical infrastructure, there are isolated cases where you don't have enough time to test, and that service is needed. So you may end up having issues, and of course also the uncertainty in terms of scope. There are scenarios that are forgotten down the line when you're doing the scoping of the services. And then later on you realize that you missed this and it's critical. So I believe with time, some of these services that are affected, because not all services are affected. There are only very few services that are affected. They'll stabilize. Yes, because we are dealing with issues every single day, and we try as much as possible to close them as soon as they.
Okay, maybe before we wrap up, just on a lighter note, having that you work for the eCitizen platform, what is the craziest rumor you've ever heard about this? You're like, oh my God, I work there, but that is not true. Whatever you're saying is not true. What's the craziest rumor you've heard about the eCitizen platform?
There's someone online came up with some imaginary numbers. It was like, imagine 2 million transactions a day times 50. these guys are billionaires. They're collecting, I don't know how many billions where does this money go?
Yeah.
From our side, we're like, damn, I wish you knew. The structures in government are so tight, and there's no room for even getting all those kind of monies. And those numbers don't even look the way they look.
But when you're saying, kindly cutting you short, when you say that this government services, it's tight, like no one can access that money, are you trying to say that even the president himself has no access to that money?
No.
To that money?
No. You see, there are, all these payments are regulated. There are regulations on how you collect revenue and how you account for it. Okay. So those accounting officers are the ones with access to it, the numbers and ability to be able to report to the government. So even the president is not able to withdraw anything. He doesn't have those powers, I don't have, and most of the people cannot be able to do that. And all the MDAs are working for the National Treasury, who's now mandated to collect all this on behalf of the government. Yes.
All right. Well, that is where we wrap up. First of all, I want to thank you for sparing your time for us here on KTN News. Thank you so much for having us.